And thank you, Stephanie, for this incredible opportunity. And the yellow team, you guys have treated us so well. I mean, it's been absolutely amazing. Bravo, right? And thank you for being here post-lunch, second day of the conference, before the party. I really value your time. And this is a very special time in our history. We have now the potential to impact more change than we have ever before, powered by exponential technology and people and consciousness. What we have here with blockchain, with this distributed ledger technology, with AI, all these technologies and people is a global immune system that's coming together to protect Mother Earth, right? And we can do this together, right? The most common thing that I hear from people who care, we all care, is that I'm just one person. What can I do, right? So that's why I'm so excited about this technology of blockchain that enables us to work in this decentralized way, to connect, to move value, to connect to all kinds of other technologies, and to impact change in an exponential way, right? I took this photograph a couple weeks ago. My body, I'm usually a night owl, and I don't catch the mornings very much. I live here in Portugal, and that's 5 minutes from my house. I never saw this for a year and a half. Sunrise. I never even knew that the sun rose right behind the fort and set on the other side. It's absolutely gorgeous. But my body I had this insight that, you know what, this is golden hour. Let me catch golden hour. So I just woke up for golden hour. I took a photo of golden hour here in Bangkok, couldn't get the rise exactly. And just being there, watching the colors change, watching the surfers come, the people walking the dogs, it makes me so happy. It makes everyone so happy. So if there's anything to take away from today, from everything I'm going to say, connect with nature. It heals incredibly, right? And this is what will give us the stamina to make it through what will be a turbulent period, but one which we can navigate. So just a little bit about my background. I'm not just a hippie and a surfer, right? I actually started my career on Wall Street. We spun off a company called Riskmetrics. That was sort of the first fintech before fintech was coined. We listed on the New York Stock Exchange just on the onset of the financial crisis. Spectacularly successful company, part of capital requirements for the central banks and many banks. I was here in Thailand advising clients starting in 1996. So I've been around. I understand the financial system, and I also understand the vulnerabilities. As a risk manager at JP Morgan, I lived through the Mexican peso crisis, the Asian crisis here, right? We had .com, we had the subprime crisis, and what was interesting is that those that managed their risk well actually thrived. They were able to make it through. JP Morgan made money during the Mexican peso crisis. During the Asian crisis, they didn't lose their shirt in the .com, and they didn't lose their shirt in the subprime bond crisis, right? So the ability to detect risk, especially right now, as the environment is changing so much, is incredibly important. I'll give you one piece of investment advice, and then we'll move to other things, which is that right now it is the easiest time in the world to outperform your average global fund manager, because they're all sticking to global indices that include sectors with stranded assets, right? Strip out those vulnerable to carbon risk, and you'll outperform. Invest in the disruptors, and you'll do even better. And invest in good blockchain-based decentralized communities, and you will do even better. And that's it for finance. But I'll tell you something now that most of you don't know. At least one person here does know that about me. We used to organize secret island parties. This was me 15 years ago with my wife after a wonderful night of dancing with friends and nature, right? And I've had a lot of insights with this amazing community bonding with nature. And one I would like to share with you. As I'm drifting off into dreamland after such an amazing positive experience with good friends, and with nature, seeing the sun set and the sunrise, I felt this beautiful love. Love not just for Malin, but a universal love. And as I went deeper and deeper into the dream world, that was the only thing that stayed. One sentence came to my mind: only love is real, right? So ultimately, when we have an experience, a death experience, for example, and we will all go through that, you will experience what really matters in your life, right? Only love matters, ultimately, at the end of the day, right? And the amazing thing here is that once you're in touch with that force, right, this is the most powerful force in the universe, and we all have access to it, right? So if you touch your hand like this, why don't you do that right now? Touch your hand to your heart, right? Everyone do it. This will be good for you. Touch your hands to your heart, right? Aroha. This is a Maori greeting, right? It means love, right? And this enables you to access this quantum supercomputer that you have within yourself. Everyone has that inside. And I was really fortunate that I was lucky enough to be in a community and to be close to nature to have that experience. So I think this is something that every human being should have access to. Go to wild places, connect with yourself and with friends. And yes, I did have a near-death experience, a real one. This is me about 2 years after that, and everything I said holds true. What the near-death experience did was just sort of firm up, you know what? Time is precious. It can go like this, do what you can right now because it's an important time. And in Finland, I learned about sisu spirit, right? Sisu is the art of courage in Finland. 1939, 1 million Russian soldiers went into Finland, a country of 5 million, and the Finns repelled them, right? That is sisu. It is facing extreme adversity with courage, with determination, never giving up, and transforming everything into an opportunity, into growth mindset, which is why there's so many incredible entrepreneurs in Finland and broadly in the Nordics, because there is that spirit of the growth mindset, right? That these guys will keep fighting, keep struggling, and never giving up. So I'm truly grateful for this lesson from my Finnish friends of the sisu spirit, and I've dedicated to keep spreading that message around the world. So this was a year ago. Now, this was a photo taken 50 years ago, actually, December 24th, 1968, Earthrise, accidentally. Apollo 8 mission, that was not on the mission. An astronaut just took out the camera and thought, boom. It's now the most important environmental picture ever taken. And as we were going to the moon, turned around and saw, wow, it's so small, fragile. One atmosphere. It's our home, and the only home that we've ever known, and so delicate. And this has sparked a new kind of a consciousness. 50 years ago, climate change was in the White House already. Sadly, not much has changed since then. So, a new generation is now rising up. Do you know who this is? Who knows what this is? Who is this? Has anyone heard of this girl? Yeah. That's right. She was at WEF at Davos. She also spoke to the UN and to the European Parliament. Her name is Greta Thunberg. She started protesting for climate in August, skipping every Friday. At first, she was the only one there. And now, sort of 6 months later, okay, so she has sisu, by the way. That should be very clear. So now she's drawing crowds of thousands and tens of thousands of people, And thousands of students around the world are not going to school on Fridays. And their parents are joining them. People are skipping work because her message is, why go to school if we are not going to fight for our future, right? And she has recently had a discussion with the European Parliament in Brussels, and has accomplished more than any politician has over the last 5 decades in climate change. So the head of the EU, after her conversation, said that they will move into a budget proposal to spend 1 out of 4, a $1 trillion budget from 2021 to 2026 into climate change. She's extraordinary. Leaders come in all sizes, and she's a leader, and her message is change is coming. What is she fighting against? This is the Deathstar. The Deathstar, it's one word, externalities, right? What are externalities? It means it's not part of the system. The air that we breathe is not part of the system. The water that we drink, our beautiful coral reefs, our oceans, our forests are not part of the system, not part of GDP, not part of profit, right? So these unpriced externalities right now amount to close to $10 trillion, $5 trillion a year, just from land degradation, right? Mostly due to pure agricultural practices, deforestation, palm oil that strips the land, creating dead zones from use of fertilizers that goes into the ocean, conventional agriculture that just depletes the soil. $5 trillion out of an $8 trillion economy just from degraded land. And a lot of the other stuff is from, carbon emissions in the atmosphere and other pollutants. So that's the root cause. So how do we fight the Death Star? We form the Rebel Alliance, of course, right? So that's the idea. And we move into a direction that's Earth positive. Earth positive is to leave Earth better than we found it. It's ancient wisdom. Every tribe knows that. You want your children to have a better life. You want to give your children a better world. You want to look around 360 degrees and just take responsibility for your actions and to move. But we can't afford it, right? It's really expensive. It's like billions, even trillions of dollars, right? Really? Okay. So 1% of global wealth, right, addresses the funding gap in all the sustainable development goals, right? Just 1% of global debt, right? Global debt right now is $247 trillion and up, right? 1% of that is $2.5 trillion. That's what the UN estimates the funding gap is for all 17 sustainable development goals, from poverty to life underwater, everything, right? To power the regenerative revolution and climate change, we're talking about a fraction of a percentage, so we can afford it. It's just about putting it into the accounting system. Hence, again, the power of a transparent, distributed ledger that's immutable, a global balance sheet for Earth that we can have, okay? So this was from an artist who gave me this idea around golden hour, right? This is his message. And if you've ever had an accident, and I've had a few, if you get to treatment within that first hour, the chance of you avoiding a permanent damage is really good, right? So first of all, gratitude for everyone in the healthcare sector, doctors, emergency care for doing that, because what you're doing is incredibly important. And what we just need to do now is set up that same good system that we have for treating emergencies, for getting a patient into the hospital and treated effectively for Mother Earth, who's hurting, right? And we need to focus on what matters. We need to look at what has the biggest impact. And my mind was kind of blown when I researched climate change. I'd researched it for a couple of decades previously, and I found out about this thing called blue carbon. Blue carbon is the carbon sequestration engine, the carbon that our oceans take out of the atmosphere, right? That's like 83%. And half of that, to 70%, is actually concentrated along the shorelines. You can't see it really well here. These little slivers of the shorelines, representing about 20% of the ocean surface and land, account to about half of the global carbon sequestration. And there are 3 keystone species, of which you have 2 here in Thailand. 1, mangrove forests, 2, seagrasses, and then also salt marshes, right? That is 0.5% of the biomass that contributes to half of the carbon sequestration in the world. We need to keep our shorelines healthy, right? We also need to keep them healthy because suck down the carbon of the atmosphere. Over the next 30 years, we will see continued rise in temperatures, continued rise in sea levels before things can normalize. So we need to make our coastal areas more resilient. The best defense is investing in natural capital. Coral reefs absorb the first wave action, and then mangroves are this bioshield that protect communities, right? Communities that have left their mangrove forests intact for tsunamis have been left largely unscathed, whereas those that cut down the mangroves have experienced a lot of losses. Here's one community that did in Myanmar. We have what was once a forest, a mangrove forest temple, and rice fields. And people decided, let's maximize the rice yield, cut the mangroves, and then what happens is that soil erosion takes out the soil, floods come in, no more rice fields, and no more fish because the entire ecosystem has collapsed, and no more temple. So here's an eco-hero, Dr. Arne Fjørtoft. He was invited by the government of Myanmar in 2012 to reverse the situation. He calls for restoring 1 billion mangroves, and he's restored 6 million so far. We helped issue a token to raise $1 million to put into this project to plant 1 million mangroves because he ran out of money because the Norwegian government that had promised him money withdrew it because of the refugee crisis, right? So we're going to see more and more of that. So at least what we know is that, that Bitcoin and crypto has planted a lot of mangroves, okay? Delivered. That was not a promise. Those are planted. He named the climate park Tor Heyerdahl Climate Park. You can look at it on Google Maps. Tor Heyerdahl was the pilot of Kon-Tiki. If you haven't seen the movie or read the book, please do. He was one of my childhood heroes. He basically, crossed the Pacific on a simple raft. Now, each mangrove here has a return on Earth of about 1,000-fold. That's absolutely extraordinary, right? This is the best investment that you could possibly make. Why aren't we doing more of that? Because we're not connecting the money with where the opportunities are. So let's create a global bank for nature powered by this blockchain technology. How do you verify impact, right? We were quite lucky. We picked a good project. We sent in, actually, Ashima, an National Geographic award-winning photographer for a week, and she captured this family of wild elephants coming in. Super lucky that happened, but this was a destroyed ecosystem, and we were so happy about that. You can also visit. So here we visited with Chris Burdish, who to me is Sisu more than any other living person I've met. He crossed the Atlantic on a stand-up paddleboard, 91 days unassisted. He's insane. So that's Sisu. But we need to scale this up. We can't just do this in one climate park. So what we're now founding is Earth Pulse. The idea is a super brain and heart to reward protectors of Mother Earth. And the origin of this came from originally a white paper the founder of Freeland wrote. Here in Thailand, you might have heard the story of the tiger population coming back in Southeast Asia. About 24 years ago, Steve Galster had an intuition that there would be tigers alive still in the Eastern Forest Complex. Most people thought he was wrong. He got $5,000 for some camera traps, I think from Shell, showed that there are tigers, and got the support to protect the tigers. And now what you're seeing here from last year's photo is a miracle in conservation. It's a mother with 2 living cubs. And Steve, in his entire life, has never seen tigers in the wild. That's how rare they are, right? And now they're spreading across Southeast Asia as well. So one person can make a difference here. We have, at our Earth Pulse meeting, at our first one, which was right after Star Wars Day, May the 4th be with you, Task.io rose to the occasion to help Steve do something which we call proof of care, right? To show that actually this action is, positive action is being taken. We've been going around and going to visit our schools as well. Many of you are parents. If you look at your child's eyes, if you look at a 5-year-old's eyes, what you're doing right now, the trees that you're planting, are making their future better, right? So that's what I will leave you with, that we have an incredible opportunity to do good with little actions. This school set up a mangrove forest of 1,000 trees, and now that forest takes down more carbon than that school emits. Anyone can do it. Starboard, based here in Thailand, upped the challenge. They're planting a mangrove for every board to make it climate positive. And I told Sven Rasmussen, why don't you up it and go for like a 10x challenge? Take down 10 times as much carbon as you're actually emitting. And he's publicly come out to do that. So support companies like that. We're going to go through some difficult times and losses, like this island here, which was a shark finning camp 11 years ago when Andy and Merritt miners arrived there, blown first from a coral reef with dynamite fishermen, and they saw a mother blacktip shark with a fin sliced off and 2 dead pups. And they decided then to put their foot down, and they talked to the local community and they negotiated a marine protected area twice the size of Singapore. They raised money at dive shows, $10,000 at a time. They built this resort with driftwood in the beginning without chopping a single tree. And then people found out about them and donated some wood that some shark finners had cut down. These are just 2 people that convince a few more people to help them. Anyone can make an extraordinary impact and be Earth positive. So let's heal ourselves and heal the planet. We can do that. Get to nature. Understand that all of these great things, right? Steve Jobs, his favorite quote was, everything that you see out there, everything that you look at, realize this comes from someone who is not smarter than you, right? Anything, you can do anything if you collaborate with purpose. If you find someone, and Steve Wozniak is totally different, right? And that's what made that team so dynamic. So find a diverse team, connect and collaborate, right? Across large networks to really have that impact. And that's how we really make this impact. So thank you so much. I took this photograph of another sunrise before leaving to Bangkok. I welcome you to visit Portugal and experience the beautiful nature and sea there. Thank you. Thank you for your attention and for your care. Aroha.
Ladies and gentlemen, Alan Laubsch. Alan, please stay up here for us for a little bit.
Cool.
Because we have been thinking about this. We think we might have a solution, or at least something to contribute.
Yeah, that's right. I believe you may be aware of this, actually, that the issue with the loss of mangroves is simply because there aren't enough woman groves. So this joke and many other terrible jokes if you follow us on YouTube.
Please welcome to the stage.
Is essentially that the internet began printing its own money.